Peace, 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 everybody. I just want to thank y'all for those that came out that's going to be listening in tonight and that is listening in tonight. You're listening to G Consciousness tonight. Once again, we got the topic going on tonight is God's plan for man. God's plan for man. What is God's plan overall? Does he have a plan? Is it what the latest science tell you or philosophers tell you? What is it? What is God's plan for man? Is there a God? And if there is a God, what does he require from us? What is his character like? You know, how should we continue to live on? Does he have laws that must be followed? Um, is he balanced? These are questions that need to be answered tonight, and we're gonna do our best to try to answer some of the things. The brothers is on the panel, and also put forth our our say in it. What we see in the scriptures. What is the scripture saying to us, and how is it bettering us? How is it causing us to prosper, to live, or to conduct ourselves accordingly? So and that's basically it. What we're gonna be dealing with, because it's very important that we understand that if there is a God, what does He require for us, require of us, and what is His plan? And I think that's very important. So I got the brother James here on the panel, and also Carl Israel Doctrine on here just as well. Hopefully, some more brothers come to the panel. And if you're watching in, if you want to come to the panel, you can do so just as well. I'll put the hangout in the chat room. I'll put the hangout, on my board. That way you can come in if you are listening in. Let me do that right now. Matter of fact, you know, let's do this right. What's up, James?
What's up? What's up?
Peace, peace. Say peace to the people, man. Let the people know what you've been doing and what you got going on, man.
I just want to say hi to everybody out there, man. You know me, I'm just chilling, working on getting my business and everything straight, and, studying myself up, study, show myself approved, and everything. And that's all about I got going on. I'm trying to get some stuff together so I can start a non-profit foundation and start helping in some of these neighborhoods that need help, with food, clothing, and different things like that.
Most definitely. That's what's up, man. What about you, Carl?
Nah, nothing much. DJing over here on Black Intelligence, Say Live 365, playing revolutionary music, uh, grassroots, independent hip hop, talking about our different situations from the hip hop standpoint, not just your popular hip hop, uh, club music and you know, drill music and gangster music and stuff and things that's dealing with a political aspect. Going into 2016, dealing more with black nationalism, black liberation theology, and more things that carry the title black in them and try to solidify, the African American community on one accord with a lot of things that we gotta that you gonna be talking about here tonight. That we gotta realize that we all was brought here on the same boat, and if we're gonna go home, it'd be good if we go back on the same boat. But people want division, every tactic to prevail. So, do my best to try to break down this really wild competition between you know, certain black organizations and black people.
Most definitely, man. So basically, y'all heard what the brother said. I will say this. I think that when we read the text tonight, we're gonna show that overall that God has a plan for man in general. That's all man. That's whether you're black, white, whatever color you claim to be, or whatever color you is, or whatever. There is a plan that God has for you, and we're gonna see what it is, and also we're gonna deal with why you know um, God initiated or brought man into existence. We're going to look into some of those things and some of the statements that he said because it's very vital and it's very important. You know what I'm saying? When we talking about things like this, because these are questions that people want to know. People want to know why are they here. Most people ask those questions. If you haven't asked those questions, I mean, that's kind of weird. But you got to be sitting back thinking someday, why are you here? And what's your purpose? You know, who made you? These are questions that you should ask yourself. You know, and where are you going when you leave this earth? Because it is evident that we do pass on. It's evident that we pass on. So where are we going? Are we conscious uh, in the afterlife? Will we be conscious in the afterlife? So those are questions that need to be asked and need to also be answered. And so we do the best we can do to try to answer some of those questions accordingly to what the Bible is saying. What's going on, Alvin? Peace to you, bro.
What's up, bro? What's the topic, Lamar?
Man, we just talking about God's plan for man in general. Most people ask the question, and I've been seeing it thrown around. Why God do certain things, how He do it, what's His plan for man? Is it good? And that's the topic. What's God's plan for man? What do we see in the scriptures that we can pull out to where we look at it and say God has a plan for man overall, and what was the origin of this plan and what went wrong with it?
I think I feel the plan is very simple, but it's also very complex because to me the plan is I have to work on Alvin as an individual and live righteously, right? So from there, then I can go out and distribute the knowledge, and they can see how I'm living and then want to live by that, not out of fear or out of gain, but it just give them a good feeling. But that's easier said than done. You know what I'm saying? I just think collectively, if everybody really strives to improve themselves at a righteous level and really focus on being Christ-like, you know what I'm saying? Being like the Messiah. If you do that, and everybody does that collectively, we gonna be okay. And then you might be able to go and conversate with somebody about what you learned, but it's easier said than done because you talk to a lot of disrespectful people, and you have to pretend they're not disrespecting you, and you got to kind of shrug it off and say, okay, brother, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, and move on. But a lot of times it might be difficult because nobody like feeling disrespected, you know what I'm saying? But as priests of the world, that's when we got to kind of shake it off and just know how to be like, you know what, this brother right here obviously ain't trying to learn, so I'm going to move on. You know what I'm saying? And I think the more we do that, the better. You know what I'm saying? And it's a struggle, man. But I think the plan is for us to try to live as righteous as possible according to His law and His commandments as we can as humans. We're not going to be able to fully do it, but we got to try though. And that's my perspective on it.
And I definitely agree with what the brother Alvin is saying. We definitely got to make sure that we get ourselves together accordingly. you know, to what the plan is, you know, and what he has set down for us to do. You know, most people they look at it and they say, well, the Bible is plagiarized. You know, most people they will say that, but they're not realizing that from early on, this biblical text was given to Adam, or he was given some instructions. And well, I wouldn't say text, but he was given some instructions, and then later on, some things was passed down to his descendants, and his descendants passed it down to their descendants, and on, so forth until it got to us. You know, and you know, when we look at that, we look at it and say, well, everybody initially has the same story. It's just some way, somehow, as it was getting passed down, it got watered down and perverted, and that's what took place. So, in actuality, when you deal with this book, it deals with every aspect. It deals with every culture of people. You know, it deals with major empires. It deals with what they call in the ancient times oracles or prophecy, or either those type of things. It deals with those things. It deals with, it's a historical book. It deals with the present things that we're dealing with now, and also the things that we're going to be dealing with are things that's coming on in the future times. So this book is very important. Now, from your perspective, Carl, what's your perspective on it?
If you go to Genesis 3 and 38, it said, give you Enos, it give you Seth, it give you, well, a handful of people. But it takes you back to Adam, who was the son of God. And any son is to be like his father one day when he grow and mature in age and, you know, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. So that was the plan of God, to recreate himself through man. That, you know, he can have fellowship and dwell on this earth with man and have a family. Seeing that from my Bible studies and belief, there was two, and they looked to have relations with other, in that sense, a relationship with others. So that's what man was created for, to be like unto God. He was created in the image and the likeness of God, but not after his kind. He was not of celestial being, he was of terrestrial. So the whole plan was to get man now. As you asked earlier in the show, the stumbling block along the way was eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which brought a separation from man and the tree of life, or the knowledge to live forever. So when that happened, man had to go about attaining this knowledge some other way. But during his journey from manhood to godhood, you know, it's been thorn, thistles, and everything else in his fallow ground, or the fallow ground of his mind, having been tilted up and righteous seeds planted in it. When that happened, then the cultivation of man will, you know, take place like it should, and he will get the fruit from the vineyard of the Lord of hosts that he was looking for in the first place, instead of all these wild grapes and sour grapes and, you know, just rotten grapes or whatever. So, you know, that's pretty much it. We was created to be God. In the end, we shall be God. Most people, they ain't gonna make it to that, you know, degree. They gonna make it to the degree that they get the spiritual body. But the Bible say they gonna suffer forever. They ain't gonna be able to live in paradise and in the presence of God. Cause like Satan, the wicked can't dwell with God. So like Satan, when he get rid of him, as he did from out of the heavens, and when he come to the earth, he gonna put him in a lake of fire, get him off the earth with him. You know, those that found to be like Satan or wicked, he gonna toss them in a lake with him. So that's a little synopsis. It's just a little something.
Cool, cool, cool. You know, as Carl said, we see, from the beginning, dealing with the expression family, and dealing with also, where things went wrong at. Now, Brother James, what's going on, bro? What's your perspective? What do you see that? What is the scripture trying to tell us, man?
I personally believe it's very basic and it's kind of goes along the same lines as what Alvin was saying earlier. Ecclesiastics tell us that let's hear the conclusion of the matter: fear God and keep His commandments. That is the whole duty of man. So as man, it's our duty to keep the commandments of God. God's plan was to create a family on earth and also to put a priesthood to judge that family and keep that family in accordance with His law. And that is what the Bible is conveying to us. And because that priesthood fell short of doing its job, the earth is in the condition that it is today. But He promised to bring that priesthood back and to put those laws, statutes, and commandments in their hearts so that they could judge the nations as they were supposed to. And that goes into why we fell short again, because, like I said, that nation failed at their job that the Most High chose for them to do. And it affects what's on the whole world, because when you're given dominion over something, when you go wrong, that thing in and of itself gets all derailed and off track. And until you get yourself back together, it can't get back together. So, and also we have to, love God, and that also goes into keeping His commandments, because the Bible also says that this is the love of God, that we keep His commandments. So, I mean, that's pretty much what I go with.
Cool, cool, cool. Yep. So, basically same stuff. Lex Vortex, what's going on, peace, brother? Um, what's your perspective on it, man? What do you feel according to the scriptures that you read? What's God's plan for man?
You talking to me, bro?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Immortality, everlasting bliss.
I mean, I can't say it no better than that. I definitely agree with that. You know what I'm saying? I think this God's plan for man overall. You know, let the people know, certain things, man, that you came across in the scriptures. To show people that, this is God's plan for man overall.
Well, we're in the flesh, obviously. When you get into the New Testament, or what's called the New Testament, is dealing with, most of it is dealing with overcoming the flesh. So obviously there's a problem with the flesh, or the kind of flesh we're in my opinion. And so obviously whatever's going on with this type of flesh we have was not the original plan. So, and I think that's why you read in the scriptures, the flesh is weak, but the spirit is willing. Paul talking about crucifying the flesh in order to live in the spirit while we're in the flesh. The book also says death is the last enemy to overcome. Well, obviously, death is connected to this flesh, because this flesh dies and perishes away, and the soul is connected to it, so we experience the pain, of that deterioration, that decay. And obviously there was some fall that caused that. So, there's a reconciliation where man will be eventually reconciled to that state of existence that is the same nature as the creator. And I think part of the fall was part of it was part of the plan, an experience we had to go through. So we was given free will for whatever crazy reason. Well, not crazy, but we chose to do it a different way. But it all goes into the plan, because without this current experience, you know, there would be nothing. You know what I'm saying? If we had not even gone through this, but ultimately, you know, we will appreciate immortality and appreciate being free from the chains of the flesh. For those of us who reach that, you know, reach that point, because obviously it's not in God's nature or plan to have his creatures suffer. So, but it was obviously necessary for whatever reasons that we probably won't understand until it's all said and done. But I think Paul said we don't know what we shall be like, but we know we shall be like him when he appears, and I think that's a heavy statement right there. That means that you have the same nature and the same existence to some degree. So, you know, the ultimate purpose of man is immortality and glory and infinite love, infinite bliss, you know, and that's hard to conceive, I think, for many, because some people think that, you know, you got to have the hot to, you know, appreciate the cold, and the cold to appreciate the hot. But that's true on this level of existence. But there's a level of existence where that doesn't matter. It's just all bliss. It's an eternal orgasm, so to speak. So I think the ultimate destiny of man is immortality and eternal bliss.
Exactly.
Hey, LaRon, if I could say something real quick.
Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I just want to, you know, go a little bit. I think he made some great points. I think it brings everything in the full circle again because, like he said, immortality. When the Most High gave the children of Israel the commandments, he told them very clearly, I put before you life and death. Choose life. And by doing them commandments, you can inherit eternal life. But we also know that living in the flesh, as the brother said, makes us inclined to sin. And we know that if we're in sin, we're in death. And the final, like he said, the final enemy is death, because we have to overcome our inclinations while we're in this flesh so that we can get into eternal life. So I just wanted to, you know, just go in a little bit on what the brother said, because I think he made some beautiful points that brought everything back full circle.
Yeah, definitely. The brother definitely cleared a lot of things up and gave us understanding. And I definitely agree with it. Let me bring out a couple of texts behind it so y'all can see what's really going on here early on. And I'm saying, like, when you're dealing with this book and you get experienced in this book, you can basically show somebody what's going on in this book, the whole scene within the whole chapters 1 through 10 or chapters 1 through 11. The whole scene 1 through 11. If you're strong with this book and you know what's going on and you can get into the in-depths of it, maybe 1 through 3 you can give somebody what's going on with us now, you know. And it's very important that we learn how to do that, because most people don't want to read this whole book and they're not going to read it. So you got to know how to go into certain passages and say, well, give me 5 chapters or give me 11 chapters with you, and I can break this down to you and show you and help you to see with what God has showed me and caused me to see by his spirit. And when you are able to do that, then people can clearly see what's going on. Some people don't want to see, because some people just don't want to do right, bottom line. That's why some people don't want the book, because they don't want to do right. They're driven away by their own lust. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect, because I know I'm not perfect, you know, but I'm striving for perfection. And as I continue to read this book, continue to meditate on this book daily, it's helping me to soothe my mind. As I continue to listen to brothers that got messages out there, this something that I can grasp and take on and eat, because sometimes we choose what we want to eat ourselves, and that's fine when it comes to this book, but sometimes you need to eat what the Most High is trying to give you, whether if it's through one of these brothers on the panel, whether if it's through you going to a church just teaching the word, sound word, or whether if it's through somebody on TBN, whatever. If they teaching the word, eat it. If it's something that's not good, chew the bone, spit the bone. I mean, chew the meat, spit the bones out. But on a consistent daily basis, we ought to be eating and nourishing our spirit on a consistent basis, building ourselves up so we can war against the lust that's in the flesh, because the flesh is enticed by conditions it has been saturated in, or conditions that, you know, we've been subjected to. So let me bring out a couple of these passages early on in the book. I'm talking about early on in the book, you get the American dream. You can't beat it. This is something we've been wanting, you know, since we was young. We wanted I wouldn't say what we call the American dream early on. We wanted to have a car when we were 16. We wanted to have these things that we see other people give their children at a young age, you know, them coming up out of high school and different things they took on, which we have not had the opportunity to get those things. And this is why, because of the fall. So let's bring out something real quick. Genesis 1 alone. Genesis 1 and 20. Now, as we see, to summarize some things up, get some things together real quick, we see that God starts from an aspect of creating an atmosphere, creating a place, and that's what we see, creating a place, bringing things into existence on this earth and also in the heavenly realms. We see him bringing things into existence, right? Now watch this. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that have life, and fowl that may fly above the earth, that the open and in the open firmament of heaven. And God created whales and every living creature that moveth, which the water brought forth abundantly, after their kind, every winged fowl after his kind, and God saw that it was good. Now understand this, God is consistently saying, or the author is expressing to us that God saying that it was good. Consistently. Watch this. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply. Now he's making the animals, everything that moves and fly, everything that moves in the sea. Watch this. And God blessed them. So off the flip, he blessing off the top. Like the brother said, heavenly bliss or just bliss, to be blessed. We see that, to be whole, you know, shalom, the shalom that we talk about, wholeness, basically. That's why when the brothers say shalom, they're saying wholeness or a peace and wholeness, basically. So this is what we dealing with. He just blessing off the flip. Watch this. And God created whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind, and God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let flower multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning was the fifth day. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature, after his kind, cattle and creeping things and beasts of the earth after his kind, and it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and God saw that it was good. Now you see him, right? Now look at him. Look what he's doing. And he's given us a portion of him. This is what he's doing in the scriptures. He's showing us him early on in chapter 1, early on. Be fruitful, be blessed, and multiply. This is what he's doing, right? The whole time. Creating an atmosphere, and once he created, he puts subjects in that atmosphere, or subjects to adorn that atmosphere, and he's telling them to be fruitful, be blessed, and multiply. Look, it don't get no better than that. He's telling everything to bring forth after his kind. Everything to bring forth after his kind. Now watch this. Key in on 26. Key in what he says. And God said, let us make men in our image and after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish, over the sea, and over the fowl of the air, over the cattle, over the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image, in the likeness, in his image of God created he him, and male and female created he them, and God blessed them. And God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree and which is the fruit of the tree yielding seed, you shall eat. You shall be giving them a diet. The diet he's giving them, he's blessed them with fruit. He's blessed them with fruit for them to eat, even the animals to eat this fruit before man was even eating animals. But what I want to bring out and clear up something. If you notice, early on, he says, let us make men in our image and in our likeness. Let them have dominion over the works that he set forth. He set forth some works that he made, and he put them over the works of his hands. And he said, let them have dominion, and he blessed them and told them to be fruitful and multiply. Now, after he had made everything after his kind, here he comes and makes after his kind, and made man in the image and likeness of him. It gets good in the first chapter. Real good. Ain't no excuses. There is no excuses for us to say that God does not want us blessed. No excuses. Because from the first chapter we see right here, it's getting good. It's heating up. It's warming up. We see that.
Can you go in depth on that kind? Because we in this image and likeness, and you know, as you were saying out this kind, everything else was fleshly, and God is spirit, and we're not spirit yet. So it will have to be another understanding of that kind also when it comes to us, because we trying to make it to that kind.
Well, when you study the wordplay here, which most brothers may disagree with what I'm finna say, but when you study the wordplay here, it deals with also dealing with certain characteristics of God that God has. Rather if it's dealing with
I mean, I agree with you. That's why I just wanted to make sure you point out what you mean by kind, about a terminology that's being used, seeing that we're not after his physical likeness, in the sense that that kind of celestial body.
exactly. So basically, in general, just dealing with your soul, the spirit, the passions. We see early on that God himself has expressed passions in the text when we read in the biblical text, and also choice. We see that early on. In other words, when we talk about an artificial intelligence, when man seeks to make an artificial intelligence, he seeks to make this artificial intelligence to have a soul, or be passionate, or be able to make choices and decisions without man in general, and to also rule with man, not to overthrow man, not to overthrow God, or not. I'm sorry, not to overthrow man from the aspect of being a man who's making an artificial intelligent being, but to rule with man and be capable of, like a computer, to carry on certain tasks, or certain have a certain dominion about themselves. So we see early on that God has made an expression to where when he says after his kind, it's in relation to also dealing with in the same family build, same family model. So with that being said, if any one of you brothers want to add to what I just read, you can do so. You know, I just wanted to bring out that early on. Oh, let me mute my mic. Where you go at, Lex?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, image and likeness is also dealing with his attributes to create, and dealing with power and authority. That's why man was given power and authority over all creation. So, you know, like father, like son, man is supposed to be unlimited in his pursuits in the same way that God is. That's why it's telling us that we would be made in the form of his son. Now it tells you that his son is the creator of all things. So he's the very creative power of God. And we're supposed to be made in his image and likeness, speaking upon whom they call Jesus Christ. So, I mean, when you look at it like that, even on this earth, even in this low state, Christ tells us that he was given all power and authority in heaven and earth. This is the same power and authority that man had in the beginning, that he lost. So when you look at even the current state man is in, once he comes into that form and likeness, even now he's supposed to be empowered with authority, because that's one of the main attribute of God is authority, you know, to command. So man is supposed to be able to command things. He's supposed to have power over the very elements. This is why you can read, Paul says right now we're subject to the elements. We're not even supposed to be subject to the elements. Elements are supposed to be subject to us. And this is why when you look at Christ's life on earth, he is supposed to be the living example of what man was supposed to be. And what did he do? He commanded the winds and the seas. He wasn't subject to disease, wasn't subject to poverty, wasn't subject to hunger. So he had authority over all these things. And I believe that part of the image and likeness and being formed, in terms of us being made in that image, that was the original position that man was supposed to have, you know, in terms of being in likeness of Christ.
And I definitely agree with that, because, you know, some brothers may not even understand what this brother just said, because they heart won't let them get it at all. They're not gonna get it. You know, some of them just too religious. You know, they're not gonna understand that, because when you look at it, as the brother said, one thing about Christ was called the Son of God, as Adam was called the Son of God. So Christ is coming to restore dominionship back unto man. That's what he's coming to do. He's coming to actually redeem man and put man back into his state and his position. And Paul even goes so far to say that the whole creation is groaning and waiting for the sons of God and their manifestation to come back unto that position, because these things were subject unto man, as we see in the very beginning when God saw that it was good and he blessed them and he put these things subject unto them. So definitely the brother dropped some daggers, and for those that's listening in, if they don't understand that, hey, we got brothers that can teach this word. You know what I'm saying? We all may disagree about certain things, but for the most part, it's certain vital aspects that we deal with that's very important. And one of them is God from the early on was good and saw that it was good. This is the American dream, so to speak, of what we call it to be. And the American dream is you want the nice things of what Christ said when he said life and more abundantly, this is why he has come. So early on, when you read in chapter 1 in Genesis, we see that God is blessing and he's telling us to be fruitful and multiply. And I'm going to tell y'all this ain't in the aspect of trying to be carnal or anything. But anybody that made that hot pocket to feel good like it did sexually, just think about the bliss that he's talking about. I'm not talking about going around and having sex with everybody. I'm talking about, I'm talking about this thing. If the pool natty, the hot pocket feel good, just think of the feeling naturally without even getting intimate with a woman of how that type of feeling would be. And who actually made that feeling. Come on, man. Who made that feeling like that? If someone made that feeling to feel like that, guess what? Just think about it when we get to that state of immortality. But we don't even have to get intimate with a woman, and we just feel the heavenly bliss. Some of y'all ain't ready for that conversation, but go ahead, Brother James.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, that's why I like conversations like this, where everyone gives their own perspective and everybody else sits back and listens. Because I was gonna say earlier that I've learned it's good to sometimes put your doctrine on the back burner and listen, because I've learned from everybody on this panel, and I was gonna say except Lex. But what Lex just dropped now is something that I completely agree with. I've always looked at it that way, but I've never heard it from that perspective. You know what I mean? And sometimes hearing things from different perspectives make them stand out more to you and makes it so they can sink in better. And that is something, like I said, I am in complete agreement with, because we know that in the beginning we was given dominion over everything that was created, which includes the sun, the moon, the stars, which includes the weather, the atmosphere, everything that goes on this planet. We was given dominion over, that we were supposed to rule over. We were supposed to say when the sun come up, when the sun come down, when life come forth, when life don't come forth. We were supposed to be able to do these things. But because we chose to live in opposition to what we were told instead of being obedient, we lost all that. And now we have holes in the ozone layer. We have fish in the sea that is coming to a point where we can't even eat them because they're so polluted and poisonous. Rivers poison, earthquakes, volcanoes, everything just going off all around the planet because us as humans didn't step into our divinely sanctioned authority to take dominion over this earth. So it wouldn't be giving off all the negative vibrations which causes the things that we have today, like I mentioned before, earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, tsunamis, all that come from the negative vibrations for going against the natural order that the Creator put this earth in and gave us dominion to rule over.
Exactly. So, so early on we see, like I say, we see early on that it's been blessed early on. You get to the second chapter of Genesis, God he starts and he only commands man one thing. One thing he commanded man. But remember, he has given man the American dream, so to speak. He commanded man one thing, him and his lady. He said, do not partake of that fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Now, I don't know, but Adam and Eve is created in a state of maturity. Ain't no belly buttons there. Y'all may laugh and giggle and hee ha ha and say, look at that picture, it got their belly buttons on there. No, it's nothing like that. Only attachment that they had to them was in the spiritual from God and to man. That was it. Not no umbilical cord. So, um, you know, I don't know, if that's, how y'all view it, but these people was actual mature people. Matter of fact, they say that Adam and Eve were so intelligent that men actually became ignorant willingly. That's what Paul said. He said that man became ignorant willingly, actually. So that's very important. So me personally, I deal with it. When I deal with things, I deal with things from a dispensational matter. Dispensational just means stewardship, probationary period, or administration, basically. In other words, Adam and Eve, early on, we see them given a administration and a stewardship. And also, probation is taking place because they're told to do something, and if they disregarded that, then something took place. Me personally, I believe God created the ending before he created the beginning. I believe that God didn't just pop out the blue and say, oh, man, they did this and didn't have a plan for it. I think that he for it already by his foreknowledge. I mean, he already had the plan already for it already
That's
by
what
his foreknowledge.
called the end from the beginning.
Exactly.
He had a twofold plan. If man eat from it, do this. If man don't eat from it, forget. Man ate from it, so he went with the plan. If man ate, this is what got to go about. So he already knew with the foreknowledge that man could fall short like Satan fell short when sin was found in him. So the thing was to make man, create him a free agent to do as he please, know the options that will take place, and then once they take place, deal with them accordingly. So that's the way it was. That's why I say he was slain from the foundation of the earth and all this stuff. God called it in from the beginning. He set it up how he wanted. Man messed it up. And so through these dispensations, as you like to say, he just waiting to put it back in its proper order. Good, make it good again. Because right now it's out of order, which makes it bad. So when that take place, then everything will be good again.
Yeah, and I agree with you there, Carl, because you mean one thing people like to leave out the equation is God is God, and He's going to hold you accountable for what you do. You know what I mean? He wouldn't be a righteous judge if He didn't hold us accountable for our actions. So yeah, He called the end from the beginning. Of course He did, but He already knew that He was gonna have to hold us accountable, and that's why we're in the situation we're in today. And until He finishes holding us accountable for our actions, we will not come into that bliss that He promised. But in His mercy, He even says that He would cut that time short, so that even the elect wouldn't be deceived by the enemy. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that's left out of it that we haven't really went into. But I mean, when God created, He was going to create. Let's say, how do you say this? Let's put it like in government terms. You know what I'm saying? You go before the judge, you have to deal with the DA appointed attorney. You know what I mean? And that DA appointed attorney gonna try to hit you on everything that you did. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what the devil does. He comes in, he gonna tell God everything you did. Because remember when he went before the Lord and the Lord talked about Job. He came up with his whole little plot and scheme talking about, oh well, he only love you and praise you and do all this because you done gave him everything in the world. Take that away from him, see what happens. You know what I mean? So we have this force that's opposed to us, you know what I mean, that's always trying to even convince us to do wrong so he can go to the Father and be like, see, they messing up. Put it in my hands, let me handle it, and let me deal with them like I want to. And we actually came to a point where the Most High did that. Because when you read scripture, I can't remember exactly where it is, but Most High says, I'm going to go back to my place. And then next thing you know, Satan's called the king of the prince of this world. You know what I mean? He's given dominion over this world because the Most High went back to his place and let him be in charge so we could be held accountable. So he could bring everything full circle because there's no way you can be righteous and not hold people accountable for their actions.
Yeah. Well, but you know, at the same time, um, he didn't hold us accountable. I mean, accountability, but I mean, according to the narrative, he paid the price for you. So, in actuality, out of love, you still, you know, it's like you went to trial, you was guilty, and you still got off. You know, that's
Yeah,
called
you did get the full penalty of the law.
called the free gift. So, you know, everyone gets exonerated at the end of the day if they, you know what I'm saying? So, but I think that's what what it's all about. When you look at the whole narrative, the whole thing is to express love. It's the whole narrative. You know what I'm saying? Like, all of this happened and it doesn't matter what you did. I'm going to pay the price for you, and no one has to be judged or be guilty. You know, I mean, that is has to be the purpose of creation. If you think about it, is, you know, to have a relationship and to express love. Can you imagine if someone did something to you, I don't know, murdered your whole family, and you forgave them, and then they was gonna go to the death penalty, to the chair, and you volunteered to go for them? I mean, who would do that? So that can only be a divine expression of love. You know what I mean? That's a inhuman love almost. When you think, and I think that's part of the whole point of the picture. That, you know, I'm this whole thing that's going on, my whole creation and everything I do is only to express my attribute of love. And you got to have something to give it to, you know, unless you want to sit around, you know, I mean, I guess you could sit around all by yourself and just be cool, but, you know, obviously there's not a need, but some form of needing somewhere to place that, you know what I'm saying, that attribute.
That's where the term reconciliation come in. That, you know, we see this term used in divorce and stuff like that. Unreconcilable differences or reconcilable differences. To be able to reconcile with someone, I mean, it's like one of the greatest attributes, to use the term, that's out there. But at the same time, people haven't learned how to reconcile, how to take disagreements and different things and forgive another person. But this going to the parable Jesus said about the king forgiving his servant all that he owed him and let him, go back to his family and live his life, free of that debt. But then he find his fellow servant that owed him, and he won't free him from his debt. That's why we got the year of Jubilee and stuff in the book, to teach these principles of, freeing people from debt and reconciling with people the differences that you might have, which is, like you said, a characteristic attribute that we got to learn. But a lot of people,
Yeah, let me add to that. I had ran upstairs a little bit. My son came down here, but I also want to say this too, because as we see early on, as I said, we can see that from the get-go. You know, we talked about, God created the ending before he created the beginning, and he already had a plan. You know, things is already in place already. You know, if you accept that a gift, if you accept that a gift, then you could be put in your right perspective, or put in the right position. I mean, you could be put in the right position in that dominion that the Most High has set up. Lex also talked about us being subject to diseases, and the very elements that we was made to be or have dominion over. We're actually subject to it, and also there wouldn't have been no imbalance. It would have been all balanced. God would have been all in all, as He wants to be. When we see at the end, when the last enemy, death, is put up under His feet, then God is all in all. And I mean, I don't know if people know what that actually means, but that means that God is harmony, or that's that heavenly bliss, or God has foreseen that in creating family that there will be some problems in the family, but things will be worked out. And just like there's problems within that family or within those groups of people, for the purpose of all moral society, righteousness, judgment, and that's all he talks about in the Bible, must be put forth. So there is a season when there is a time that one must kill. Because eventually, if I keep telling somebody not to do something, and you keep doing it, and you're causing all moral, free moral agents of what we call people to have free choice, you causing these free moral agents in moral society to be corrupted by way of the decisions that you're making that's unlawful, when you have a guide in you, which is either the book was written or your self-consciousness or self-conscious. So if you're not governing yourself properly by those things, then eventually I'm going to have to do something to you. I can't keep telling my son to stop doing something and not put no belt on his behind, because he's going to keep doing it. And then eventually, if I grab him and put him away and put him in the area, and that can only last for so long. Eventually, I'm gonna have to whoop his behind, or allow those who he is collaborating himself with to whoop his behind, basically, or for trials and tribulations to whoop his behind. And this is how we see it going down in the text. But I want to bring out something. As we see, there is in each dispensation 9 points. Now, I want to start at point 3. First point being the name of the dispensation, or the length. And the third point I want to start at, key in on that one. The third point is a favorable beginning. Because we see, as we just read, that man is given a favorable beginning from the get-go. So no one can say that he is responsible for what happened, because that's one of the attributes that we share of God. We have choice and we have self-responsibility. And we have these attributes that we have, which make us like God, is because, like the brother Lex said, we have the ability to make from what God has created, of being intelligent or intelligent designer. We have that ability. So as we see, we have that dominion, and we have things that's subject unto us that's in our realm at this time. So we see a favorable beginning. Now, what I want to ask the brothers across the panel, because the fourth point of this dispensation is the test. And the test was that God allowed them to be tempted and tested due to the fact of allowing the serpent to basically come into their realm, or which I believe was already of their realm, but allowing the serpent to take counsel with a deity and cause man to be subjected unto the fall, which consisted of, as Lex said, diseases and all types of other things came behind that. As James said, everything within his realm began to be unbalanced. Was the test needful?
What happened is a curse came from the ground. A curse came on the ground. He was created from the ground. Curse came up on him. One and the same. But what we see here in front of plan of God, if you really study the text, is he allows Satan, who is the tempter, to tempt man like he tempted the third part of the angels that followed him in in being tossed out, right? So he all God already created angelical beings, angels, right? Cherubims or whatever you want to call them. And he's seen what happened with that creation. So now God, not being a foolish God, said, well, if I create another creation, then I got to do it in a certain way. That's why he didn't make man permanently celestial in the beginning. So once he allowed Satan to test them or tempt them, then he seen what happened. But yet and still he showed grace at that time. Because we all know the conversation between the day you eat, that's the day you should die. And the day with the Lord is just 1,000 years, but it's also, a literal day. Now he could have been very literal and dealt with the sun and the moon in their orbit or cycle and killed them in a day, but then he would have killed off his whole creation. That's called being vain and vanity. And he would have had to create man again. So this is where we see the separation from the tree of knowledge of good and evil and God himself, which I believe the tree of knowledge of good and evil is Satan, but the tree of life is Jesus. The serpent was also, these are allegorical conversations that's taking place too. So with the temptation to fall, now he have the ability to bring man back, allow man time to change from his position, repent. So we see Adam and Eve live a nice little amount of time, less than 1,000 years, but they had all that time to reconcile with God, repent of their evil, and turn from their wicked ways, and overcome the test that they initially failed. So that's where grace come in. And we see this all through the book and through time, where you see people falling and dusting themselves off and trying again. But then you see, as you said earlier, where he put certain people to death immediately, due to the mindset and the disobedience that they were showing that wasn't conducive to the rest of the people that was around. That's why he started giving us the commandment that if one do certain things, that person 9 out of 10 is not going to change. He know what a reprobate mind is because he give it to people. So then he conveyed that to us, how to deal with that type of person and what type of acts are unto death and what type of acts aren't, quote unquote, unto death by our hands and by our authority. Kill a person for doing this, don't kill a person for doing that. They have an opportunity to change and repent. So it's a complex scheme, but if you really go through the book, you can decipher it and discern.
Hey, now Lex, what you think? Was the test necessary?
Man, y'all know that my views are radical. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to take the conversation off too far, but personally, I believe we are the fallen angels. Personally, when you look at, I believe in dimensions and spirits. So, right, if I'm sure anyone who believes in the Bible believes in spirits, right? So that means a spirit, right? You can't see it, right? But it can be sitting in the same room as you. Would everyone agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I think of the Garden of Eden, that's how I see it. I believe the Garden of Eden was fourth dimensional. It was on this plane, and Adam and Eve were not third dimensional. That's just my personal radical belief. So when Adam and Eve was not third dimensional originally when they was created. And so when I read the Bible, I'm reading kind of a pre-existence situation where even the story of Adam and Eve kind of parallels the fall of the angels. You see the same thing happening. And then, that's how I understand the flesh as being the punishment for the fallen, just like Adam. So personally, I think that we fell in the flesh, that we actually on some plane before this existence rebelled against God, and then you see it played out through the stories of the Garden of Eden and all that. That's just my personal belief, but I think at the end of the day, um, we see we're in the flesh. We see Jude talking about those who didn't keep their first estate, and was cast down in chains. I see the flesh as those chains that we're in, that we're bonded in, and I think we had an existence with God before we even manifested on the earth, and we made decisions, that got us cast down here. That's me personally. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that that's the truth. And I know a lot of people say, well, that don't sound biblical, but that's just how I see it personally. So, and I think that's where the reconciliation is coming back in, where we can get back to God. But ultimately, I think we had a pre-existence. I think that Adam and Eve, the original, were celestial, and that whatever that means, I don't think we understand. The stories is trying to relate to us something that we really can't understand on some type of hyperdimensional level. You know what I'm saying? Like, that fall actually is more than, I think, just somebody just doing one act of, biting the fruit, and then, because we see things rapidly change after that. We see a lot of physicality, more physicality going on after that, and but that's me personally. But I think at the end of the day, even though people have different views on it, the end is the same, and that is, are you going to be reconciled back to the original state? You know what I'm saying? No matter what your view on it is, I think the end game is all that counts. Will you make it back to that state?
Well, when it comes to the question, was the test needed? Like you say, we like God and God like us, since we in His image and likeness and attributes and stuff, right? And what do man do? They test all product. You got product testing. Man is a product of God's work, and He basically gave us product testing. I mean, you got to see if it works. If it works, then you put it out and you sell it to the consumer. If it don't work, then you scrap it. So down to man, he product tests us, because he already had different angels before us, a product of his creation before us.
Right? Did you notice the language of Paul and Peter, that they referred to themselves as strangers in the earth? You know what I'm saying? When I hear language like that, I know it probably has a lot of connotations, but they call themselves strangers and aliens. Like, and I think
when you go to John 17, say he's not of this world, because I'm not of this world, and so on and so forth.
Right, and I think that is kind of alluding to, this physicality, this state that we're in, but the spirit that lives in them, that's who they truly are. You know what I'm saying? And this is not the world that they're of. You know what I'm saying? And if you think about that, when it says world, it can't just be referring to just like the earth, because the earth is just like Jupiter or any other planet. Is made of these, physical atoms that form it. So, for me, they had to be speaking of a different plane. Like, we're you know what I'm saying? Where we come from is not even of this realm. Like, we're here, but we're not even here. It's the flesh, but we're living in the spirit, and our spirit is our home is not here. That's what I got from it.
Yeah. Now, what I see, well, what I see, so we know already that the test I think there's something that was needful. And the reason why I say that is because when you look at it, um, early on, early on, even ourselves, for instance, when we put a object or we put something out, when we put something out, the first thing we do is, especially if you're manufacturing anything, you test it and you take it up under, or you allow it to go up under certain tests to see if it will, if it will be, how do you say it? If it will be um, stable or have some type of stability when you, like a car, if you put a car out for a family, you run it through certain tests and precautions and different things. So when you do take it up off that manufacturing line and you put it to that family, or you put it out there for that family to be in, it will be safe. The airbags, the different things of the tires, the ratios of the tires, and all these different ratios of mathematical problems will be precise. Therefore, if anything take place, then if something was to take place or whatever, there's always a safeguard for it, or so to speak. Which you also you test it and you put it out there. For instance, even when you're dealing with antidotes or whatever, most people take the certain antidote that they take, and I mean, like the poisonous snake or something. They take the snake's poison and they examine it and they use it for. Sometimes they use it to study on it, and then they make an antidote from the actual venom. Very important concept, because if you see that something has already has failed due to the fact of cause to be poisonous from the get-go, what you do is you take that that venom, or you take that snake and you make antidotes from it.
They give you the flu in the flu shot. You can get the flu.
Exactly.
It's a different type of flu people prevent.
Exactly. Not saying that that thing is the one that initiated, but that's how they deal with the problem. For instance, when we talk about Satan, when we ask questions, we say, what is Satan's purpose? Why is he around still? When we read the book of Ezekiel, we get a visual, Ezekiel 28, we get a visual of this cherub early on, and what was his portion, and what happened, and why did he fall. The Bible says he actually fell by his beauty, by the brightness, his brightness and his beauty. And the Bible talks about, when you are before God, or you before this creator, these deities or these angelic beings was before him, and his brightness would shine on them. So when his brightness shined on them, and plus they was already bright, that's double brightness. So because of their beauty, caused them to fall or be consumed by their beauty. When we see in the book of Ezekiel, when he calls the law of double reference, when he's talking to one of the kings in there, but the spirit actually is the one who he is dealing with, is behind that king. So he said that by that spirit, his beauty, about the covering cherub, his beauty, and we know a cherub is not dealing with a man, it is actually dealing with a angelical being, or a heavenly being. We know that this being is called a covering cherub, so it's basically dealing with Satan himself, or the adversary, as we see in the book of Job, who's being dealt with just as well. So he had a position, but somehow, some way, he caused, because he has something in him that is of God just as well. We know he has this in him because why? Because Adam was told, he said that if he partake of this tree and eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, he should be as gods, knowing good and evil. So when he partook of that tree, we know that he had the knowledge of God, of knowing good, the knowledge of knowing good and evil, which is an aspect of God, because we see God himself came and confirmed that when he said, man has become one of us to know good and evil. So we see early on an aspect of God is to know good and evil, and this was something that was given to man when he ate from the fruit of the tree, when the serpent told him, ye should be as gods, knowing good and evil. That is an aspect of God. So we realize that Satan early on, being created in the way that man was not created in, it says that he was perfect in his ways till iniquity was found in him. So if he was perfect in his ways, that means he began to walk outside of the ways. So we see early on, before Adam even came into his garden or his paradise, we see a fallen character that fell.
Because the only thing about that is, I don't know what it means, but I agree with you to some aspect in terms of, but Scripture says the Father is light and there's no darkness in him. So to say he knows evil, I don't know if that, you know what I'm saying, if that lines up.
Well, if I can say something real quick, I mean,
Hold on, real quick. Hold on, real quick, James. Let me respond on that. What I mean by when it says God has not Himself experienced evil, as we see the note in there, He has seen evil in rebels. That's what I mean by that. What I mean by that is the Bible says that God has created evil, but when you look at the word there, it's the actual word there is ra, right? And the word ra there, it means calamity. It means plagues. It means nauseum and different things. Because when you would do evil, the Most High say, He will bring those things on you. He would cause calamity. So these are the laws of sowing and reaping. So when you would do evil, or you will sow evil, you will reap those things, which was calamity.
Called polarity. Let's know about polarity. Polarities to everything, spectrums or scopes. So when you say good and evil, is just talking about a different charge of the same. It's the same charge used in a different way. So what's good and what's evil is based on observation and so on and so forth. But it's just a polarity of each other.
Exactly. And you know, another thing too, what I want to bring out too, the word there for evil there is also ra, the knowledge of good and evil. God has never experienced any of those things, but He has seen those things. He has created those things for rebels just as well as the aspect of man sinning, or angels sinning and changing their habitat or their first estate and coming into that realm as being a fallen being from disobeying the instructions. So that's what I mean by when we say that God has to the knowledge of good and evil. It's not in that aspect of Him experiencing any of those things, but seeing those things in rebels and knowing how to deal with them accordingly.
And when you do the scripture states that the evil He created was death. If you go to Ecclesiastes 9, He said this is an evil amongst all things, that man die. And so that's
exactly
when they say create evil, and anything that'll bring about death is a tool used to bring about evil.
Is that referring to the Father or the Son? You know what I'm saying? Because the book says the Father cannot even look upon, you know what I'm saying, impurity. I forget, I think that's in the Psalm somewhere. So that's like saying, you know what I'm saying, like he's so pure, he can't even like look upon this thing. He can't even take part in this stuff. So maybe the good and evil is referring to the Son, because that's who we are being formed in the image of, right? When you get to the New Testament. I'm not saying that's true. Maybe that's...
Well, I was just gonna say, it depends on how you're looking at the word evil. If you're looking at it from its modern usage, or are we looking at it from a biblical perspective? Because like Laurent was breaking it down, you know what I'm saying, evil means calamity. Like modernly, anyone would think, okay, taking a life is evil. But then you can righteously take a life, or you can unrighteously take a life. To punish someone for a sin that they have committed unto death is a righteous way of taking a life. But to commit unjust murder, that's wrong. You know what I'm saying? So like they were saying, it's subjective of how we're looking at the term evil and what perspective we're taking to it. Because there is no evil in the Most High, because He doesn't do anything unjust. Everything He does is in accordance with the principles that He's laid out. So no, there's no evil in Him whatsoever. But that doesn't mean there's no calamity. It doesn't mean that He doesn't order people's death. or destruction of certain things.
Exactly. And real quick, we have 5 more minutes until we go off a line. So if y'all want to, y'all can make some closing statements because we're gonna go off a line at 11 o'clock because I gotta tend to these kids and get them together. It's 11 o'clock here, so we y'all can get y'all closing statements in, and then we gonna go off live.
All right, let me answer the question you posed earlier real quick. When you said, was it necessary for us to go through, what we're going through right now? And I would say, yes, of course. The Most High has very simple ways of showing us how you get something that's precious and something that's valuable, and pure. Because in the scripture, he talks about how gold is refined by fire. You know what I mean? You have to go through. We know in nature that you create a diamond through immense pressure. Through immense pressure on coal that crystallizes and becomes diamond. I mean, like, well, I don't know if crystallize is the right word, but y'all know what I'm saying. So, yes, it's very necessary for us to go through those things so that we could become the pure being again that He created us to be in the beginning. And just to close out, I want to say again that is great to have, shows like this where everybody's giving their perspective. It's not like no back and forth arguing going on, because shows like this help us to understand other people's views and help us all to grow in our knowledge. And who knows who's out there that may understand it the way Lex is saying it, or the way LaRon or Carl is saying it instead of the way I'm saying it, or vice versa.
All
Yeah, I
right.
think. Go
I
ahead,
was,
bro.
I was just gonna say good night.
Yeah, in the end, we all win, man. I think it says all Israel will be saved. I think that's referring to just about pretty much covers the whole territory. I think the plan is for everyone as a collective, the whole body of Christ should be resurrected. I think that's all humanity. So I think in the end we all win. I think the ultimate thing we have to realize is it sounds corny, but I've been saying a lot. It's love, man. You know what I'm saying? That's covers a multitude of sins, and that's the answer. Everything that goes on in the world, you can always chalk it up to lack of love. Whether it's murder, stealing, killing, whatever it is, this is just a lack of divine love, which would obviously not cause you to do this to your fellow human being. And that's not an easy state to reach in the flesh. You know what I'm saying? But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think we all reach that omega point, and reach that plan. So when the scriptures talk about birth pangs, and I think people shouldn't be so gloomy when they see all these things happening, because that means we're getting closer to that point of what some call the return of you know who. So with that, man, peace and love.
LeBron, where you at? Nah, man, good show, good talking. But it's raining down here, so I'm finna get some sleep, some good sleep.
Yes, sir. What happened to LeBron, man?
Well, we had 2 minutes left until it all goes off air, so I think he just let us do our closing statements, and he went to take care of the kids.
Oh, okay. Yeah, man, that's good conversation, though, man. Good conversation.
Yeah, I hope we do this again sometime, man. It's good listen to other people's views and perspective with no animosity.
Yes, sir. Are we still on air or are we off air?
We still on live for the minute.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Certain.
Hey, my fault, guys. Let me say this real quick. I just appreciate you brothers for coming out, man, supporting and being on the panel, man. Brother Lex coming out, also James, and also Israel Doctrine, man. It's always a pleasure, man, to go to war with you brothers, man, and have you brothers on the front line, man, because that's what it is. That's what it is out here. I want to say this real quick. Each one of these brothers is on the panel you see here. We all either deal with certain aspects of the Bible, from Revelations to Genesis, and we have our strong points in each one of these these categories, or each when you're dealing with this Bible, this biblical text, and that's the good thing about it, because we're able to come from all aspects of dealing with this Bible, because the Bible deals with every aspect that we're currently dealing with in this world. So that's very important that we come from the perspective that we come from when what we're dealing with. But the main thing is we find in the Bible what the Bible is actually dealing with is the character aspect, and that's very important, because without that character, you can't see the kingdom of God. You know what I'm saying? You can't really come into what Christ is trying to do, because you will cause all moral society to go corrupt or be messed up by certain actions that we display or we've been conditioned to. So, I just want to thank these brothers for coming on this panel tonight, because, like I say, it's very important that we continue to do shows and continue to just keep it up. So with that being said, I just want to say peace to everybody out there, and may the Most High bless and give us understanding on a daily basis, and we come into His character and His image. With that being said, I just said peace and shalom and wholeness to everybody.